Thank you for joining us again for AHA, which stands for Human Among Humans. And do we have a human for you this evening?
Oh,
you can introduce
sweetie.
yourself. It's true.
Hi, I'm Monica Raymond, and I'm here to talk about my play, The Owl Girl, which is getting a free reading at the Central Square Theater this coming Tuesday night, November 27th at 7 p.m. It's free. And Michael has very
And I'm
kindly...
going to be there. Yes.
Yes.
Be there or be square. Yes.
It's going to be delightful, I hope. I'm really excited about the actors, and Vicky Shirer is the young director. She's really gifted, and Central Square is a really great community resource. So please come on out for it. It'll be from 7 till about 9, 8:30, 9, and then there'll be a talk back.
Next Tuesday. This coming Tuesday.
This
coming Tuesday.
November 27th.
Yes.
Yeah, So, Human Among Humans, what should we do?
Well, we're going to be reading part of the scene from Monica's play, which is called
The Owl Girl. And you want me to set this up a little bit?
Yes.
So The Owl Girl is a magical play about two families in the Middle East who both have keys to the same house. There's one family who took it over 7 years before, and the other family has been living in exile. And the son of the exiled family, who's in his early 20s, learns that they still have the key to the house that they lived in, and he decides to go back and take a look. And when he gets there, he meets the young daughter of the family who's living there. In the middle of the night, she's the only one awake, and they meet and are really strongly attracted to each other, and she invites him to come back. So the whole first act is his return journey with his sister, and unbeknownst to him, his parents follow. And then, through various machinations and plot developments, the family who's living there agrees to let them stay. And the scene Michael and I are going to read for you happens towards the beginning of the second act, after both families have been living together for a while. And the character I'm going to play Aura, who's the mother of the family that had been living in the house that was not in exile, and Michael's going to play Rav, who is my husband and the father of two of our children, Stell and Cappy. So, here we go.
How long do you think they're going to stay?
Forever, they said.
You don't think that was just hyperbole?
If someone says forever, I'm inclined to think that they mean forever. Have you seen any signs of their leaving?
No. That's the problem. I haven't.
Problem? What problem?
It's just...
You have a problem with the old man? Every day I see you sitting, playing chess. It's civilized, nice.
Yes, that's fine. It's all fine. It's just...
What then?
What he watches on TV. The fights. Every night.
So?
So, it doesn't bother you?
Me? No.
What's the matter with you that you're all right with it? You're not consistent. 1 minute you're making fun of all the warrior talk of the son of yours, and the next minute you tell me that you don't mind that our son is watching the fights with some unknown quantity every night.
I don't mind. I see him sitting. He's quiet, happy. He stopped talking all the time about wanting to die.
Fights! Every night! That doesn't seem like it would do you think that's a bad influence?
I'm sorry. It doesn't. Come on. What is it really?
It's just sometimes I like to watch my show.
So tell him.
Sometimes I want to watch a cultural program or one of those documentaries of how we're destroying the water or the air or the earth, so I can feel that I'm a concerned citizen. Like the other night, there was this documentary about the Russian palace they've turned into an art museum.
The Hermitage.
Exactly, and I said, I'd really like to, trying to be polite about it, excuse me, do you think we could? And the old booger just sat there cheering the punches as if he didn't hear me at all.
I suppose you'll have to assert yourself.
No! That's the completely wrong track. Why should I have to assert myself in my own house to watch a cultural program on my own TV? It's an atrocity. And if that foghorn carcass can get me to negotiate about this, don't you see? Everything will be up for grabs. Some things are non-negotiable.
Maybe we should get another TV.
Besides, it seems so petty.
Petty? You're completely furious about it.
I know, but we're doing this wonderful experiment in coexistence, and I'm going to ruin it because I want to watch a program about a Russian museum on TV. It makes me look like a worm. I'm not going to bring it up.
Fine then, don't.
I just as soon have them out of here. Sad.
Yeah.
Well written, if I may say that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, from this little thing about TV, ruin the whole, get out! Ruin the whole coexistence. Because I can't watch about the hermitage.
Right. Well, living together is hard under any circumstances, actually. It's just hard for people to live together.
Don't tell me that. Oh,
and when there's long-standing opposed narratives, it doesn't make it any easier. But the thing about this play is that one thing I'm looking at, one thing I wanted to do with this play is figure out how people make alliances, either temporary or stronger, more lasting, across those opposed narratives. Like, those opposing narratives are not all we are. Not all either side is. So that was kind of the thought experiment of this play, was who bonds with whom and how and why. And sometimes it's not for the best reasons, like the two fathers really wind up binding because they're incredible patriarchal sexists, and they bind around that.
Yes.
And that proves to be like one of the stronger things holding them together.
Yes.
So that was the
patriarchs of the world unite.
Exactly.
We have nothing to lose but our slaves.
So that was the thought experiment of it. That was the play of it. Okay, who makes friends with whom and why, and what happens to those friendships?
So little Romeo and Juliet. I don't think you've told the audience about how it.
Yeah.
You told them a little bit. Yes, how
yes, Stell, who's the daughter of the family that's been living in the house, and Joe's the young man who comes from outside, have a romantic relationship, and it's tested, but I think it's one of the things that's going to endure through the whole play and beyond the play.
So you're still rewriting this play?
What?
Are you still rewriting this play or not?
No, this play, I'm still making cuts, as you can see.
Yes.
It had a reading in San Francisco at Golden Thread. Golden Thread is a theater in San Francisco that specifically does work about the Middle East. That's its mission. And it had a reading there about a year ago. And the guy who directed it there saw some cuts. He was going to tell me which ones, but then he never sent me, so I'm kind of on my own. So basically, the thing about writing a play is that when you have good actors, you almost always use too many words, because you're trying to make a lot of things happen that then a good actor can make those things happen without you having to make everything literal. Without you having
great tips you wouldn't guess on our show.
Say everything.
Great tips for playwriting. So you're going to watch it read on Tuesday. Might know some cuts.
I'm going to try to make some cuts before, because I'm kind of closing in on this as a finished script.
Yes.
I feel that it's basically done, and so it's very much like that last little fine-tuning and polishing. But people who come out can expect to see something which is pretty close to done. It's pretty production ready at this point.
And are you going to hear them before they read it, or
we're going to have rehearsals that's not open to the public starting at 3:00 on Tuesday. and people are going to rehearse all afternoon
And then do it
eat
again.
something and then do it at
Why?
night. Because there's 8 characters and
everybody
someone
getting-
reading stage directions, and people have incredibly busy, crazy schedules, and so the easiest way was just to make it all happen in one day. And I
I
think
look
it's
forward
cool.
to it.
Yeah,
Immense.
yeah.
And then talk, and then you're gonna, and then a nice Cambridge conversation after the show is over. Right?
Yes, there's going to be a talk back. The talk back will be both about the script and what goes on in it, and because of current events in the Middle East, I'm imagining that this talk back may go far beyond the script. And,
We unfortunately have a strong a strong person in charge of.
of who's going to be leading the talk back.
Yes.
That's a really good.
You might be good at that, but you.
I
should
might.
Be
I
not.
should figure out who it's going to be. And yeah. You want to come?
I'd be
in?
happy to if you need. I only no need to, but if you want someone.
Let me
Yes.
let me ask Mimi Huntington, because
Yes.
she's one of 2 theaters at the Central Square Theater. She's the artistic director of the Nora Theater. For those of you who don't know, the Central Square Theater is a thing unto itself, but it's also a melding of 2 separate theaters. The Underground Railway Theater, Deborah Wise is that artistic director, and the Nora Theater, and Mimi Huntington is the artistic director of that theater, and she's taken the lead in making this particular
she might be
reading
good.
happen.
She could
Yeah,
do
yeah. So.
So what moved you? You were telling me. Oh, I wanted to tell people though. What I love about this is it's a family drama, which we're used to.
Yes.
But this is way more meaning beside just a struggle between families.
Yeah, it's kind of, its original title was Parable, and it was originally kind of a thought experiment in bringing these 2 families together. But plays and the characters had parable-like names, like a mother, another mother, a father, another father. But it turned out that they actually had a lot more life and self-will in them than that. So they've turned into quite dynamic and complex characters on their own.
And you see them in your psyche. Is that how they develop, or?
I as a writer, I personally more hear people than see them. But I do see some things happening. For example, there's one scene where Anja, the owl girl of the title, who's the girl from the exiled family, and one way she made it through all the checkpoints to get to this house is that her grandmother turned her into an owl.
Wow.
And for the entire play, she prefers life as an owl, and for the entire play,
right.
she's trying to get back to that.
Wow.
Basically, to rise above the fighting, to be able to fly
Yes.
above the fighting.
Yes.
And eventually she does. And so there's a scene where she takes off.
So if you need, if you want to be an owl, if life in Cambridge is getting a little too cold for the winter, come Tuesday at 7.
So we were talking before the show, and I was telling Michael how this play came. The seed of this play was that I was doing audience development for a program called Occupied Territories in 2004. It was a program that Saul Slapikoff produced at Boston Playwrights Theater, and it was 3 plays by American Jews and 1 solo performance piece by Soha El-Jerf, who's a Palestinian American, about the situation in the Middle East. And I was trying to drum up an audience for it, and I wound up in a long conversation with a man named David Dolev, who was running Muslim-Jewish dialogue groups in the Boston area. And he told me that there were Palestinians in the West Bank who still have the keys to the houses that they lived in Jerusalem, and that they're holding on to them with the hope or the idea or the dream of one day coming back to them. And that was like it was a seed. It was like something out of a very powerful folk story. It's true and it's historical, but it also was mythology to me in a way. So I brooded on that, and then eventually I thought, what if there were 2 families, and one family and there was a young man in one of the families who has the key to his old house, and he's driven not by a warlike urge, but an urge for peace that brings him back. And so that initial image was the seed.
An urge for peace?
And he has a gift for peace. So he has a gift for making reconciliation with everything he comes in contact with, whether it's an animal. And that's why he's able to move. He's able to move through the checkpoints because he has help from the whole natural world. Because he's that kind of, charmed character in a fairy tale who can find a way of aligning with anything that he meets. So,
wow!
Yeah.
So I've seen many of your plays. I think at least several.
Yeah.
I've never. Have I seen this move into fantasy?
Usually my full-length plays have some element of fantasy.
I see. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, actually I have a short play called Mr. Llewellyn that is about a dead music teacher who comes back to life.
Oh, so you like
to give his prodigy student her first kiss.
Wow. So you like this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. But actually this play I did not intend to have magic in it, and I was quite surprised when it turned magical on me. I had set it up with these two families, and I thought it was going to be more of a psychological and a political play about what kinds of things people had to overcome to live together, and somewhat it still is that the ways their narratives either facilitate or get in the way of contact. And I wrote about 12 pages, and I came to this scene where Joes comes back in the middle of the night, and he opens the door, and only the daughter of the family that's living in the house, Stell, is still awake. And they meet. She's at first very suspicious of him, and then they actually begin to have a tremendous connection. And he starts telling her about his sister. And he explains that after they went into exile, he kept on growing, but his sister stayed 13. Well, when I wrote that, the characters very much have minds of their own, and when I wrote that, I was like, what? Give me a break. It was so not the way I thought it was going to go.
Oh, my.
That I just put it aside, actually. And then, as I was telling you, I had a reading scheduled at Smith. They have a new play reading series, and that was where I had gotten my MFA. And I had a bunch of different projects that I could do work on for that reading. And I said to my old advisor, Len Berkman, what should I do? And he said, well, do a play with a lot of characters, because that way we can involve a lot of students, and you'll have an audience because they'll all being your friends. So I had this, and it had 8 characters. Actually, at that point, it had 9 characters. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back into this and find out what this magic is about. And it turns out it's really important for the way the play develops, that her growth is stopped, and then when she comes back into her old house, it suddenly speeds up and wildly accelerates.
So a couple of questions about fantasy.
Please go for it.
So is it hard then to keep the play not only believable, but keep the drama, because the possibility that anything could turn into fantasy world?
Well,
or the strict rules for this fantasy, like maybe just one?
Yeah, I think these worlds have their own rules. They do. And they're not totally of my making. I mean, when you're writing about an imaginary world, I think this is true for prose science fiction writers also.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I have to argue with the idea that these are imaginary worlds. I mean, I feel that
very nice.
I feel that they're maybe represent a different level of the psyche. Like when you dream that you can fly, for example.
Yeah.
Is that imaginary, or is that some possibility that at some level we really have,
Right.
So So imaginary is like a shorthand,
Yep.
you know, because all the time, even technologically, we're doing things that 100 years ago would have been thought of as completely imaginary.
Or even even unimaginable.
Unimaginable. So, so I'm not sure that fantasy is exactly the right word, and I don't know what is the right word. It's more. I mean, I have to say, there's a lot of miracles. I mean, sometimes they're really mundane little daily miracles, you know, or sometimes just the sunlight on a plant is a miracle.
Yes.
But I feel like I see a lot of scripts that are kind of like television sitcoms, and our idea that that's reality. Our idea of reality is as much constructed by the forms we view as mirrored by it, if you see what I'm saying. It's like we see people behave a certain way on TV. We're like, oh, that's real life, and then we write scripts that replicate that, you know?
Or even see each other in certain
Exactly.
Oscar Wilde has a great line.
What is it?
Nature imitates art.
Absolutely.
Ever since the Impressionists, we've had marvelous sunsets.
That's right. So
maybe after coming to see this play on Tuesday, or even hearing us, hopefully our consensual reality, which maybe sometimes doesn't include these imaginative realities, will be open to them. Yes.
Well, part of it is that it's a play that very much is about dislodging people's set ideas. I mean, right now, with this particular crisis in the Middle East, we're at a total impasse. You know, I mean, we have this ceasefire and that ceasefire, this negotiation, that negotiation, but basically, this problem is not getting closer to being solved, I don't think. And so, in order to dislodge our stuckness, we need to open up our minds in a big way. And, you know, can you do it with a play? I mean, that would be like ridiculously optimistic. But,
well, Uncle Tom's Cabin?
Yeah. Actually, I just had a reading of another play in Houston, and the director at the end of that play gave me a card with a quote from August Wilson, and it said, "Art doesn't change the world. Art changes people, and people change the world."
Very nice.
I was really, really happy to receive it, and I hadn't heard it before, so it was awesome, you know.
I have a question you might not be interested in, so pass.
Okay.
So what's... Now, religious thinking...
Yeah.
I mean, I love watching evangelical TV, as I was confessing
Yeah, you were
to
telling me, yeah.
So angels will appear.
Yes.
And miracles will happen all the time.
Yes.
And God will intervene.
Yes.
And so is there any difference between there's imaginative worlds you write about and religious worlds that they speak about?
Okay, I haven't answered for your question.
Wow,
which is,
I love it. Yes.
Okay, so Anja, the owl girl of the title.
Yep.
At the beginning of the play, she doesn't want to only be an owl, but she's hoping to become a leopard or a spotted cat. And it was pointed out to me long after I wrote the play that all of her imagery about herself and her transformations actually refers to the... it's the same imagery that the ancient pre-patriarchal goddesses of the Middle East were spoken about. So I think that somehow that, you know, in some weird Jungian way, that seeped into my play, and I didn't really, I didn't intend it, but I wasn't disturbed that it happened.
Oh, so ancient spiritual...
Yeah, so it's not necessarily...
reality's really coming in.
Yeah, so it's... And the other play, the one I just had the reading of, A to Z, is also about the question. It's more literally about the question, but it's also more consciously, like, if the goddess were to appear in 21st century America, who would she be? How might she live?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's maybe from the same source, but I do feel like the imagery that we have for religion, and even though you go to Havra Shalom and they've changed the name of the god to female and so on and so forth, I feel that Jehovah or Jesus, or Muhammad, or Buddha, I mean, we have a tradition of prophets that are male, and so that obviously has opened tremendous possibilities, but also has created limits. And so I didn't set out to do it, but I don't mind if the voices of the pre-patriarchal spirits,
Come
who are
through
also the spirits of the earth, actually,
Yes.
that we need desperately to reconnect with. If I can make myself a channel for those to sometimes come in and be on the American stage, I'm all for that,
And for us too, our last 20 seconds, we too, who knows what you'll be channeling after listening to Monica. Raymond, whose play will be read this coming Tuesday, at the Central Square Theater at 7 o'clock. Hope to see you there. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Yes,
My
thank you.
pleasure.
Yes.